How's it going, everyone? Welcome back. Hope everyone is having a lovely day. So, amidst all the big noise surrounding Joe Burrow and the Bengals, there is still a lot of noise regarding Logan Wilson and him being a part of three separate tackles that, we should say, slowed down and injured Mark Andrews, Lamar Jackson, Odell Beckham Jr. against the Baltimore Ravens, and a lot of it being talked about as little hip thrust tackle, driving a guy into the ground, if you will. And we hear a lot of crazy talk potentially of, hey, we gotta do something about the way these players are tackling guys. We gotta change something because they shouldn't be taking all their body weight and driving into these players, driving into the ground, because it's causing injuries. Now, maybe this is a completely off the walls perspective here, but I mean, first let's think about this. First of all, these are grown men out on that football field. The objective of an NFL football game is to walk yourself into that or run into the end zone without being knocked to the ground with the ball in your hands. The only way you stop a player from doing that is knocking a grown man off of his feet onto the ground to not do so, which means the offensive player is going to do his absolute best, his absolute hardest not to fall on the ground. So if the defender does not do his absolute best, his absolute hardest to bring him to the ground, he is going to shed that tackle, he's going to break that tackle, and he's going to walk into the end zone. Now, put that into perspective. When you're a defender, your job is to do absolutely everything you can to bring that guy down. You're trying to do it at the most legal possible way you can. You're not trying to injure anybody, but you have to do your job. And now let's talk about Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb's got nothing to do with this, but Nick Chubb goes into a gym and just puts every plate in the building onto that bar, picks it up, right? The guy's legs are the size of a freaking tree. It is not easy to bring down a professional athlete at his peak, at his prime, let alone a big old tight end like a Mark Andrews or a Travis Kelce. These are big guys. You have to go into every single tackle knowing I'm going to try my absolute hardest and put all the force I possibly can. You have to remember that has to happen. It's a game of strength on strength, especially when you're coming up from behind. Now, if you're coming into him head on, you can obviously find different ways to tackle a guy and try to slow him down other than driving him to the ground. You can kind of, again, that's the difficulty of being a defender. You're going to take his legs out, you can take his head. You got to do something because you go around the chest, they're just going to run through you. Now, coming from behind is a little bit different where they say, you can drive him to the ground because you can put all your body into where you're going to. It's a different collision. Nonetheless, you got to be able to bring him down. Somebody runs up from behind you and they keep pushing you, they're going to push you into the end zone. That's not their objective of the game. They come up from behind you and they just come at you slowly and you're going full bore. You're just going to shed that tackle. There's so many missed tackles in the league in the NFL, and a lot of it's got to do with poor tackling. You have to find ways to get players to the ground. It is a game of power versus power. There's always going to be injuries. You are never removing that from the football game. As long as it's a collision sport, you're not going to remove that from a football game. Imagine somebody just walking outside and tackling you right now, not tackling you properly. It's probably going to hurt a little bit. Now imagine doing it in pads at full speed and doing it against a guy that doesn't want to be tackled. He does his absolute best to fight it off. Play after play after play. You have to have a way to go in there and go as hard as you can to tackle this guy. And now my flip side is I think where my perspective is a little bit different than most is if we don't like what Logan Wilson did, why is it Logan Wilson's fault? Why is it never the offense's fault? Nobody there. I've seen a lot of talk saying, well, Logan Wilson's a dirty player. He shouldn't. I thought it was interesting to get the Mark Andrews hit. I thought it was interesting was the Lamar Jackson hit. Logan Wilson has to do what he did against Lamar Jackson, because if he doesn't go out there and try to drive him down to the ground and bring him to the ground when he's running at that angle, Lamar's going to screw it down the sidelines because he's got the speed, agility, and ability to do it because he's a freak athlete out there. That wasn't Brett Favre. That wasn't 38-year-old Peyton Manning or Brett Favre. Like, he wasn't walking to the sideline and walking out of bounds. He was going to take that edge if he could get it. If he could shed that tackle, he was going to do it. If you're Logan Wilson, you have to do your best to bring that guy down. He didn't give himself up on a play. And that's what's difficult when you watch some of these plays. I don't see the dirty plays there because you have to do what you can to drag this guy down. And at the end of the day, when a guy's coming full board at motion, when you're grabbing a guy and he runs through your arms, obviously it's going to look like you're twisting their ankle a little bit because you're pulling them down that way. That's how you grab them and tackle them. So I guess my question is, we always bring this to the defense. Why didn't Lamar Jackson just walk out of play right away? Why didn't he give up on a play? He didn't want to take that hit. Why didn't he give up on a play? If Mark Andrews didn't want to take that, get drugged down like that, when he gets touched, when there's contact, why does he immediately just fall down? Why is it that we don't look at the offensive players and say, hey, there's 6 guys on this running back and he just keeps turning the legs instead of giving himself up? but we're asking the defender to say, hey, he keeps churning the legs. That's not his fault. Let him fall. Let him keep going. We have to tackle softer. It sounds ridiculous, but it sounds ridiculous to say you got to get rid of the tackling system the way it is right now too. I understood the headhunting. The headhunting was causing concussion. That was a problem. But you have to allow players to tackle a guy some way, shape, and form. And if you're an offensive player and if you're worried about injuries, that's your answer. No one's stopping. There's no rule in this playbook. There's no rule in the league that says if you have a problem getting hit, if you're worried about getting hit down low and you're dragging a pile, give yourself up. Slide down and a play. If not, you go up and you sign up for a football game knowing it's a collision sport and you know that that's a possibility. So for me, yeah. I didn't see anything wrong with what Logan Wilson did. It's easy to, there's easy to find some dirty plays and guys and whatnot, but unfortunately, because you don't want to see Mark Andrews miss the rest of the season. That's phenomenal tight end. That's top 3 tight end in the league. You don't want to see this guy miss the rest of the season. Even as a Bengals fan, you see the injuries that Lamar Jackson's had over the years. You don't want to see this guy miss half the season. You don't want to see him miss the rest of the year. You want to beat the Ravens at their best. You want to see them healthy and playing the best they can. You don't have to go out there and beat a Tyler Huntley. You don't want to see some guy's health and career put on the line because of that. But you still have to allow game to play game, players to play the game. And hopefully we see nothing come about what Logan Wilson did this week because, we're seeing it quite universal. It seems quite common at least. It was a football play. It was a football play, and it's what you kind of have to do. You got to be able to, and I think that's the thing when you think about the motion of quote unquote drive, thrusting the guy and driving him. Again, the reason it looks like that is because of that initial contact. If you don't come in with full force and putting yourself the most leverage you can to knock a guy down, especially a guy of that size, he's going to run right through you. And we see it time and time again in the league. So they have to kind of brace themselves for that sort of tackle. Hopefully that is the way the league looks at it. We'll see. Love your all's thoughts. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.